Choosing Home by ginnyrules27, Chapter 18. Ben sighed as he made his way toward Audrey's dorm room. He knew he should head straight to the council room and greet the members as they arrived, but he wanted to check on Mal. Plus, there was a question that only Audrey could answer. Lightly knocking on the door, he slipped in after hearing Mal's voice. Ben bit back a sigh as he looked around the room of his former girlfriend. It truly hadn't changed at all since the day they had dated. The walls were still that same shade of perfect princess pink. The array of photos on the mantel still showed the progression of their love, as Audrey used to call it. And then, of course, there was Audrey, sitting in her bed, glaring at Mal, Uma, and Estelle. How can anyone glare at Estelle? And for that matter, when did Audrey wake up? I thought we knocked her and Freddie out back on the quad, Ben thought as he walked over to Mal. Hey, she said as she lightly wrapped her arms around him. Ben smiled as he gently kissed the top of her head. He couldn't help but sigh into her hair. This was his second trial as king, and the second one that involved the family of one of his friends. Though, if he was honest, Ben wasn't entirely sure he could even call Audrey a friend. You okay? Mal asked him, having heard the sigh. I don't know. It's okay. It's okay, Ben. Mal whispered. It's understandable. She was one of your oldest friends. Hell, she was someone your parents thought who would be a good spouse for you, judging by that bloody contract, to steal a phrase from Harry. You don't have to do this, you know. No one would think any less of you if you abstain from this questioning. Ben shook his head slightly. I would think less of me. I'm the king. I can't just push my responsibilities onto other people. If nothing else, she's still one of my subjects, and I have to see this through. Ben, she's also your former girlfriend and one of your oldest friends. Plus, I don't think you've rested since we got the news that the scepter had been stolen. You need sleep. I'll sleep when all this is finished, Ben promised, and then turned over to look at Audrey, as Mal gently took his hand, as if to remind him that she was going to be by his side no matter what. What do you think you're doing, you filthy half-breed? Audrey snarled as she saw Mal's hand in Ben's. Comforting my fiancé who just had to deal with your and Freddie's reign of terror, Audrey? Mal snapped back. And, really, half-breed? At least get an insult that applies to me. There isn't anything half about me. Audrey, think about your next words very carefully. You're already in a lot of hot water for what you've done, Ben warned. I'd advise that you execute your right to remain silent unless you want to answer our questions. Audrey rolled her eyes as Mal gently rubbed Ben's back. It's okay, Ben, she said, keeping her voice soft. I can take whatever she throws at me. I've dealt with much bigger fish than her. And if you can't handle mere insults on the aisle, can you really call yourself a VK? Oh, of course not, Uma scoffed. As she shook her head, even Estelle snorted in agreement. Ben couldn't help the soft smile that pulled on his lips. I love you, Mal. So much. Even though you've been through so much, you're comforting me rather than getting that arm checked out. Benny Boo! You can't seriously be willing to let her talk to me like this! Audrey exclaimed, pulling Ben out of his thoughts. I'm sorry, Audrey, but you're the one who called her a half-breed, Ben stated. Also, we talked about the nicknames back when we were together. I didn't like them then, and I don't like them now. Bernie, unfortunately, that's not going to matter how many times you tell her that. Humanoids like her lack the organ known as their brains to comprehend simple requests, Uma said, rolling her eyes. Benny Bear, are you seriously going to let her talk about me like that? Audrey exclaimed. I am a princess. Well, I should have been more than that, but you saw fit to throw away our contract. Ben sighed. I didn't throw it away, Audrey. If you remember, I did try to talk about the fact that I wanted out of it with you calmly and in private, but you were the one who brushed it off as my nerves before the tourney game and didn't take it seriously.
Why would I take it seriously, Benny Boo? You never indicated that you wanted to break up before then, Audrey cried. In fact, you were so happy with me until she came and ruined everything.
Audrey, think about it. Do you call me having to constantly ask you not to call me a nickname happy? Do you call arguing with me when you insulted my best friends happy? Can you truly say I was happy in our relationship? And even if I had never said anything before, the fact that I was saying it then should have logically let you know we had our issues. Blame Mal all you want, but she was just the final straw.
Audrey rolled her eyes. Honestly, Benny Boo, I never insulted your best friends. Calling them by their lot in life isn't an insult, it's a fact. They are half royals, and honestly, you could do so much better as the king. And what's wrong with my nicknames for you? Grammy always said that they were cute. But all the years with that teacup and the half royals spent poisoning you against Grammy and me wore you down, huh? Otherwise, why would you break up with me?
Audrey, I am a half royal. If you take offence with Amir and Akio's bloodline, then you take offence with mine, Ben said, his voice growing hard as Mal gently squeezed his hand in comfort.
But you are the crown prince, Benny Boo, and now you're the king. You don't get more royal than you.
My mother was a commoner before she became queen, just as Amir and Akio's dads did. I have as much royal blood as they do. You were always quick to comment on that fact, but you always wanted to ignore my bloodline. It's clear to me that what they said was true. You only wanted my title, not me.
Mal squeezed his hands once more. She knew that she should probably stop him. With the way Audrey was talking, nothing would get through to her. But how long had Ben been bottling these things up? And honestly, would he be in enough of an emotional state to say them again? He needed this. Ben sighed and looked at Audrey.
I tried. Honestly, Audrey, I tried to stick out our contract, because I considered it a promise made by our parents in our names. But honestly, the relationship was 100% about you. Our dates were shopping dates where I was your glorified pack mule. Even after I got a concussion in tourney. You complained about barely being able to see me when we were a month away from coronation. I don't think either of us was happy in that relationship. You were one of my best friends, Audrey, and for the sake of that, I really did try. But our relationship was doomed from the start.
He shook his head slightly and straightened his back. His emotional walls coming back up as he slipped back into his role as king.
But now is not the time to talk about that. Now we need to talk about your crimes, both against the Kingdom of Oradon and against Uma, Mal, and myself. Do you understand what you are being charged with, or do I need to go through it with you? I'd go through it, just so she can't claim she wasn't informed of her charges. Uma spoke up.
Ben sighed but nodded. There was no denying the fact that Uma had a point.
Princess Audrey, your charges include breaking and entering into the Museum of Cultural History, theft of the Queen's crown and Maleficent scepter, breaking a convicted criminal out of his cell, throwing a coup against the Kingdom of Oradon and its royal family, using magic without permission, attempting to curse the king and succeeding in cursing the future Queen of Oradon, and last but not least, the psychological torture of an heir to a royal family.
You can't charge me with that last one. Fred's the one who shoved Chad into the closet, and honestly, with how much of a wimp he is, he probably just couldn't handle the fact that my attention was on another man. He's faking it, Audrey said with a scoff.
You still aided and abetted the crime, so we can charge you with that as an accessory to it. Ben stated, as well, Chad was not faking. You can't fake the state we found him in that closet.
Oh, please. Chad's such a drama queen, he could fake anything. Besides, Mal and Uma hate Chad as much as they hate me. You really think they don't want to pile on the charges? While Chad Charming will never be my favourite person, Audrey, no one deserves what you and Freddie put him through. Mal stated. Seriously? You turned Fred into a dragon chew toy, and yet you're all in a tizzy about how Chad being locked in a closet for a few hours? If anyone needs to be charged, it's you, Mal! Audrey exclaimed. Ben opened his mouth to step in, but Uma shook her head slightly, as if to say Mal had this. Charged with what? Protecting the king when Freddie was about to kill him? That's a charge I'll gladly take. What about spelling the crown prince? Or performing magic twice without permission since you transformed Ben's coronation and cotillion? Oh, and endangering a member of the royal family of Ardon when you threw that dagger at me before cotillion. Audrey growled. Fine, Uma said just as Mal opened her mouth. If you're so sure he's under a love spell, kiss him. If he is spelled, and he loves you, and you love him, just as much as you say you do, it'll work no problem. Ben frowned, not liking the idea of kissing anyone other than his fiancée. Not to mention there was the likelihood it would give Audrey the wrong idea. Well, Uma, I really don't think... Sorry, Benny, of course we're not going to force you, but I'm trying to make a point here. If Miss Pink is so sure you're spelled even though you can't be, why has she never thought to try and kiss you to break it, if you are so in love with each other? Ben, you don't have to, and like Uma said, we're not going to force you. Mal said, honestly, I think Audrey's argument is reaching at best. After all, it was Merryweather who gave you that gift, so if she honestly doesn't know you can't be love spelled, then that's on her. Right. Uma nodded. I'm just saying that if her brain is so full of pink glitter to think about things like that, it's on her, as Mal said. And I understand that, Uma, but I'd rather not kiss anyone I'm not engaged to, Ben said as he kissed the top of Mal's head. That's going into territory I think none of us want to think about. Mal smiled slightly as she leaned into Ben's touch. You throw Freddie's dribble out of your mind and burn it to ash, okay? We're going to get through this trial, and then we can focus on more important things, like starting to plan our wedding. Excuse me? What, Audrey? Did you think that by doing this and pitching a fit, we suddenly wouldn't go through with the wedding? Frankly, the only thing you are is a very annoying roadblock, Mal said, her voice cool. Trust me, Audrey, the wedding will still happen. Right now, the bigger hurdle to our getting married isn't you or Freddie. It's our age. But I'm fine with waiting, because I love Ben. Or do you really think you're that important that the whole world has to stop when something happens to you? Newsflash, brat. You're no more important than anyone else. In fact, by throwing your little coup, you probably just lost the limited number of people who would have cared. Uma scoffed. I wouldn't be surprised if people think of you as a villain now. Any friends you thought you had are going to flee to the hills. And if Freddie stays with you longer than a month, it'll be a miracle. Ben shook his head. All right, Uma. That's enough. We're not here to goad her. We're not? Uma asked, and Ben bit back a chuckle. Honestly, Benny Boo, you're looking to make someone a bad guy here, when you should be looking at yourself. I think this is her using her right to remain silent, Mal sighed. Audrey, you know the council will ask you to explain yourself, as will your parents when they... Audrey? Stephanie Rose! Get here, Ben said, finishing his sentence, as Aurora and Philip stormed into their daughter's dorm room. King Philip, Queen Aurora, I wish this was under happier circumstances. Thank you, King Ben. Aurora nodded. As do I. Oh, hello, Mother. I'm doing fine, thank you for asking. Wonderful weather we're having. Audrey scoffed. Don't be smart, young lady. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in?
Philip stated, crossing his arms over his chest.
All I did was try to secure my birthright.
Your birthright is the throne of Aurora, Audrey, not Auradon. And I wasn't just talking about that. There's a possibility that you're pregnant?
Father, you signed a contract stating I was to be married to Ben and be Queen of Auradon. That is my birthright, yet no one asked me if I wanted to be removed from it. You were all fine with dropping it like a hot potato as soon as Mal came along. And I'm sorry, but I don't see how my body is any of yours or Mother's business.
Ben sighed. We'll let you discuss this in private. I should go and greet the rest of the council. Appreciated, King Ben. Philip nodded. We'll be in there soon. Ben nodded his head slightly as he, Uma and Mal made their way to the council room, Mal's hand firmly grasping Ben's. Ben! Belle exclaimed, rushing over to him, and as Persephone did the same with Mal and Uma. You girls all right?
We're fine, Mum,
Mal promised. Mum, I promise. I'm okay, Ben said, even as he smiled at Belle. Beast walked over and rested a hand on Ben's shoulders. They made their way into the council room, where the rest of the council had already been seated. Ben gave a comforting smile to Kit before speaking. Thank you all for coming at this late hour. I know we'd all rather be asleep in our beds, but this is the most pressing issue we need to address. Of course, Aladdin nodded. Due to the personal nature my father and I share with one of the defendants, we will be recusing ourselves, Ben said. King Eric will be running the trial instead. Thank you, King Ben. Eric nodded as he stood up, Ben taking his seat next to Mal. I informed the council of the charges, so we should be brought up to speed. My son has also informed me of all that's happened. Aladdin spoke up.
My nephew has as well.
Elsa nodded. Same with my daughter. Shang added. Eric nodded. Very well. Bring forth the accused.
King Eric, I would advise that they be kept on separate sides of the room.
Mal spoke, gesturing to Estelle to get under the table.
As well, I'd like permission to be able to silence Freddie Frollo at least. He is not known for his filter.
Permission granted, Lady Mal. I only hope that they are not needed. Ben nodded as Freddie and Audrey were led in. Philip and Aurora sliding down while Jay and Harry went to stand next to Uma. Mal bit back a sigh as she saw the scratches on Jay's arms. Clearly Harry had tried to kill Freddie while the boys were on guard duty.
Honestly, Harry, don't you know that Freddie might try to use that to his advantage? He shows up with bruises, he can argue that he's tortured and that his confession should be thrown out. Mal thought with a small sigh. You know, I find it interesting that I'm being charged with attempted murder, and yet Mal is getting off scot-free for what she did to me. Freddie spoke up. After all, I'm pretty sure it was by the grace of God that I survived my encounter with that dragon. What's more, I'm pretty sure the little witch didn't have permission to turn into a dragon. So we can go ahead and throw that charge out. But then again, I forgot. King Eric here has always been pretty good at falling under a witch's spell. It would make sense Mal would pick him to run the trial, since it appears Beastie Jr. is too afraid to face me and answer for the hypocrisy both he and his family face. You say I escaped imprisonment? What about the unjust imprisonment the children of the Isle faced for 20 years because of royals like you and Beast? No one needs permission to save the king's life. As King Ben's main protector, Lady Mal has automatic permission to do whatever she deems necessary when his life is under threat, including her dragon transformation, Aladdin stated. And we'd be saying the same thing if it had been Fairy Godmother who had injured you with a spell, in case your next argument is going to be that Mal receives special treatment due to being King Ben's fiancée, Elsa added. What's more, is the fact that angering King Eric is somehow a good defense. I am not the most familiar with being on the defense side of a trial, but it doesn't seem like it would be the best course of action for me. Furthermore, you talk of witches, yet I seem to remember hearing charges of you being accessory to the attempted cursing and successful cursing of King Ben and Lady Mal, respectively. Freddie shook his head. Honestly, how is assisting a royal in cementing her birthright a crime? Mal should be the one on trial, not us. Just because Mal decided that a legally valid document was not good because of misplaced jealousy towards Her Highness. Then again, witches are known for holding their grudges. Her mother cursed a baby after all because she wasn't invited to a party.
Are you sure I can't kill him?
Harry whispered to Jay. Clearly, this is getting us nowhere, Eric spoke up as Freddie opened his mouth once more. If we listened to you to try and argue out of every crime. Oh, but are some of them even crimes, or just trumped-up charges? After all, can one really aid in the psychological torture of someone they don't know it's torture? Freddie asked with a smirk. Then again, charming such a wimp, it wouldn't surprise me if he thought that to be torture. He certainly didn't seem all that up for letting that blonde experience a real man. Kit's hands curled into fists, and Mal had to admire the restraint he had. She knew that she wouldn't have been as skilled. Prince Chad and Princess Alexandria's father is here, Freddie, and he doesn't need to hear your filth, Mal stated as her hands glowing as she cast the silencing charm. Thank God's Maleficent deemed it evil enough. Probably so one could torture their victims and not risk help barging in from hearing the scream. Shall we move on? It's clear he has no remorse or defence for his actions, and we don't want to be here all night. Mal asked, looking at the council.
Right, thank you, Lady Mal.
Eric nodded.
Princess Audrey, do you have any defence for your actions? Or is it safe to assume you feel the same as Mr. Frollo, and we can move on to sentencing?
As Fred said, I fail to see how it is a crime to want my birthright, to be treated with the respect my station deserves, and demands. But no, heaven forbid we go against something Mal wants. It's clear that your minds are made up anyway.
Eric sighed. Very well. The floor is open for suggestions for sentencing. 10 minutes in a room with me. 10 minutes in a room with me, Harry muttered as he glared at Freddie.
Aurora spoke up. King Eric, forgive me, but I believe the council is missing a piece of information.
Of course, Queen Aurora.
Eric nodded, even as some on the council muttered among themselves. There is a possibility that Audrey is with child, Aurora stated. Her father and I will not contest to her sentencing, but we ask that if there is a child involved,
this child is not their parents. They did not commit their crimes, Eric said. I know we messed up in that respect with the Isle before, but not again. If there is a child, he or she will be left in the care of you, Queen Aurora, unless another party expresses interest.
Thank you, Aurora said as she sat back down.
In the light of the new information, should we postpone a sentencing for Princess Audrey?
Phoebus stated, Esmeralda sitting by his side. Normally spouses wouldn't be attending a council meeting or a trial, but no one saw any issue with Esmeralda seeing the sentencing of the son of Frollo.
Not necessarily, Eugene stated. She can be remanded to the care of her parents until we are able to determine if she is with child. If she is not, then she'll be sent straight to the Isle, and if she is, she can stay with her parents until the child's born.
Since we are to send her to the Isle, is it safe to assume she'll be stripped of all royal titles? Elsa asked, and Mal bit the inside of her cheek to prevent a smirk from forming. Evie's going to love this, she thought, as the memory of their first encounter with the brat replayed in her head. The evil queen has no royal status here, and neither do you.
It's time Audrey learns that there are consequences for her actions, Philip stated, something I thought she knew, but I was apparently wrong.
Apparently there are things you don't have to face if you're Mal or Ben, Audrey muttered.
I also think that if she receives one, some of her allowance should be put into a fund to help rebuild the Isle, while another part of it should go towards any therapy Prince Chad and Princess Alexandria require, unless there is any objection from King Kit and Queen Ella.
Aladdin spoke up.
Thank you, Sultan. You'll find no objection from me or my wife.
Kit said, his voice soft.
Ella would have been here as well, but one of us needed to be with Chad, and we weren't about to leave the girls to their own in case something happened.
How is he?
Snow White asked. Chad? He hasn't said a word since he came home, Kit said with a small sigh. But now it's late. And with no disrespect, as much as I enjoy spending time with you all, I'd rather go home to my son. Understandable, King Kit. Eric nodded. Shall we vote? All in favour of sending Frederick Frollo and Princess Audrey to the Isle, her to be stripped of her titles and her allowance donated partially to the Help of the Isle Fund, and partially to any therapy that Princess Alexandria and Prince Chad need? Raise your hands.
Hands began to rise as Harry sighed in disappointment. Ben counted them on his head. It was a unanimous vote.
And while it feels pointless to ask, any opposed? No hands rose. Right. Frederick Frollo, you are to be sent to the Isle immediately. Audrey, you are stripped of your title as princess, and are remanded to the custody of your parents until it is determined whether or not you are pregnant. At which point, you will either be sent to the Isle, or sent to the Isle after the baby is delivered, and your allowance will be donated to both the Help the Isle Fund and to any therapy Prince Chad and Princess Alexandria need. Eric said, banging the gavel, Guards! Please escort Mr. Frollo back to the Isle. Immediately. Ben sighed as the guards came in, and after Mal reluctantly removed the silencing charm, dragged Freddie out of the room. It was over. Or so I thought, Ben thought as he saw Mal's eyes flash in irritation.
We need to talk, she hissed in his ear, and Ben nodded, though he wasn't going to deny his confusion. Freddie was going back to the Isle. Audrey was sentenced. Wasn't this a good thing? End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh boy, my throat is sore, but what a chapter. Oh boy, you can really see the power play at work here. And Audrey, you really think Mal doesn't know about consequences for actions? Of course she does. She's been punished for things before. Honestly, people will do anything when they think they're right, don't they? They will pin it on anyone else. Always pisses me off. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to be notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye.